This training is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of your broker, nor that of your attorney. Let's get started.
Well, good morning, or yeah, I guess it's morning for you. It's barely hanging in morning for me. I am in Denver, Colorado, and I am Rich Sands, CRS instructor. So a little bit of background about me just to get us rolling here. I have been a realtor for 29 years. Before that, I was a secondary school teacher. I've been a runner for about 54 and a half years, just crossed 117,000 miles about a week ago, which seems like a long ways, but it's been a long time. So there you go. I've been a teacher of one kind or another for 36 years. I had a lot of 15 years, in fact, of teaching mostly ninth graders and seniors, which is why I look way older than I actually am. I've been a CRS instructor for about 17 years. I've been on the planet way longer than any of those other numbers. And this is my 114th Zoom class. So here is my disclosure, and this is because I am a transparent fellow. This is about a 60-minute class. The real problem is it isn't a 60-minute class. It ends up being about a 75-minute class. So instead of scheduling it for 60 minutes and having it go long, we're scheduling it for 90 minutes and have it go short. So this will be about 75 minutes for us to get through this. If we have any technical difficulties, like if all of a sudden I just go, and then I don't say anything for a while, don't worry, I'll find my way back in. So this is creating listing abundance. Originally, when I became a CRS instructor, I taught CRS 201, which was listing strategies for the residential specialist. I chose that when I became a CRS instructor because my specialty as an agent was always listings and sellers. So at some point when one-day classes became kind of the cool thing, what we decided to do was take the very best things from CRS 201 and the latest things about technology and listings and psychology and listings and presentations and listings and roll it all into one class. So I wrote this CRS one-day class called Creating Listing Abundance. And what we cover in there is we spend a lot of time talking about the listing mindset and working on your strengths and understanding how much hard work is a component of creating listing abundance. We also talk about sources for listing abundance and how do we find people both in traditional kind of marketing ways and also in some 21st century sort of marketing ways. We talk about what I lovingly call pre-positioning or preparing for the appointment, doing the things that you need to do ahead of time, not just preparation, by the way, but also pre-positioning the appointment. I consider a listing appointment to be nothing more than a negotiation. And so we can pre-position negotiations to help them go better a lot of the time. So we talk about that. We also talk about what I call the KCF presentation. I wanted to call it the KFC presentation, but CRS thought we might run into trouble with Colonel Sanders there. So we'll talk about that a little bit today. We talk about handling the competition, whether it's other agents, whether it's companies, whether it's iBuyers and Zillow and all kinds of stuff like that. And then we talk about positioning for success, or what we call pricing. So for us, because we have a short amount of time, we won't cover all of that, certainly, because we can't drop 8 hours into 1.5, but we'll cover a bunch. So I want to start with this idea. Why list? Well, I think there's some great reasons to list. And let me say this before I even do another click. I spent 6 years in the real estate business. I won't say floundering. I mean, I did 14 transactions my first year. I stayed between 14 and 18 for the next 5 years. So at the end of year 6, I was just kind of bored and I was tired. And I thought maybe it's time to go back and teach again. I sat down with my broker. My broker suggested I try something really novel, which was a business plan. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do this business plan thing, if nothing else, just to make my broker happy. When I was putting together my business plan, among countless other revelations, the big one was this. When I worked with a buyer, I made $88 an hour. When I worked with a seller, I made $200 an hour. And that was the day I decided I was never going to work with another buyer for as long as I lived. Now, the other side of that, by the way, was the more listings I took, the more buyers seemed to find me. So there was no way to get away from them. So I had to develop other ways to work with them to be more effective, more efficient, but that's a topic for another class. But I decided that day to become a listing agent. Here's some of the other reasons. First off, I think listing agents make more money. Listing agents also save more time. I think they have more sanity and a lot less stress. I think there's potential for a lot of different spin-off business from a listing. I think listing agents prosper in any kind of market. I think they have longer careers, more friends. I think they're just better looking people and probably a lot nicer. So those are all the reasons I think we ought to list. So in this 75 minutes or so we'll spend together, I want to focus on 5 things. First, I want to focus on the listing mindset, talk about that a little bit. Next, I want to focus on something that's really important for you to create listing abundance, and that is this idea of controlling the process. Third, I want to talk about the magnets of strengths and how we can not only draw, utilizing our strengths, we can draw people to us to have more appointments, and then we can convert more appointments by utilizing our strengths. We'll talk about the KCF system, and then we'll finish off with what I'm going to lovingly call the one buttock presentation. So let's start with our first focus, which is mindset. We're going to work, basically we would work on 4 mindsets. Now, again, because this is a shorter class, we won't cover them all, but 4 mindsets are really important. And the first one is yours. How do you look at yourself? How do you look at your business? How do you look at an appointment? Next, there's a marketing mindset. Marketing for listings is different than marketing for buyers, in the same way that fishing for trout is different than fishing for bluegills or sharks even. We'll talk about the counseling mindset, because consultation and counseling go a long way to making you a successful listing agent. And then we'll talk about the presentation mindset. We want to focus on these mindsets because before anything happens in anything, before it happens in running, something I know a lot about, before it happens in a listing appointment, before it happens anywhere, before it happens in a conversation with a spouse, a significant other, or whomever, we have to have the right mindset. So we'll focus on our mindset first. So when I first decided mindset was a big part of this, I decided to look it up. And so here's the definition from dictionary.com, because I don't know that we have real dictionaries anymore, right? A mental attitude or disposition that predetermines a person's responses to and interpretations of situations. Now, I got rid of a word that actually exists on dictionary.com, and I got rid of it because I don't believe it. The word that existed was, it said a fixed mental attitude. I don't think my mindset is fixed. I don't know about you. I think I have a growth mindset. I've changed my mind about a lot of things in my life, and I still do every single day. So I think if we have a mindset that's growth oriented, we're more apt to create listing abundance, and we're more apt to have the mindset to be able to do that. So think of yourself as a growth mindset person as opposed to a fixed mindset person. We've heard from somebody, and I don't even know who the first person to attribute this quote to, but we hear from people that what you focus on expands. So focus on what you want, not what you don't want. So if I want listings, if I want to create listing abundance, I have to focus on listings, and I have to have my mindset focus it that way. So what is the listing mindset? If we're going to do the road to creating listing abundance, and it begins with our mindset, what is that mindset? First and foremost, clear intent. I think you have to not only know why you're in this business, but why you want a listing, why you are the one that ought to have it. Why is the motivation word? It's why I would ask a seller, why are you moving, to discover their motivation. So I want clear intent about my why. If I'm working on my mindset, I need to know why I want the listing, why I'm in this business, why I ought to be chosen. Then I need to think about helping people, not selling them. If you're going to create listing abundance over a long period of time in your business, what you're going to find is you build a lot of relationships. Building relationships revolves around helping, not just selling people. We all know what it's like to be sold. None of us like it, yet some of us fall into that trap. Well, Brian Tracy said, approach each customer with the idea of helping him or her solve a problem or achieve a goal, not selling a product or a service. Then comes the tough part, hard work. The listing mindset comes with doing the work, doing the hard work to get the appointment, doing the hard work to prep for the appointment, and then doing the hard work to deliver the appointment. We have this phrase, and especially in American culture, about working smarter. And we think that if we work smarter, we don't have to work as hard. And I got news for you. Hard work is hard work. And the operative word in the phrase work smarter is still work. It's still work. There's a such thing as upstream effort and downstream effort. I would love downstream effort. Downstream effort, though, doesn't mean I'm still not paddling, doesn't mean I'm still not steering, doesn't mean I'm still not paying attention. I'm still working. I'm just trying to do it smarter. For knowledge. I say this in the old CRS 201 two-day class. I bet I would say this 24 times. Know your stuff. You have to know your stuff. If you're going to create listing abundance, you have to know what it is you have to offer a seller that would draw them to you to make them want to pick you. So your knowledge, the whole knowledge component of this is, what do you have to offer a seller? What is your marketing plan? What is your communication plan? All of that sort of stuff. And then emotional intelligence. While your IQ, what you know, is really important, your EQ is equally important. And it really has two primary components, intrapersonal and interpersonal. So if we look at your emotional intelligence capabilities, the first one is self-awareness, you understanding who you are. Self-awareness has a lot of other components to it, like self-management, self-motivation, stuff like that. But then there's an emotional intelligence capability that you have that we want to finely tune that relates to other people. So intra meaning intrapersonal, meaning me about me, interpersonal, meaning me with others. How do I view myself with others? And the big component of that is empathy, your ability to understand how somebody else feels. And then last but not least, we hope that you have some social skills. We hope that you have some manners, you know how to get along with people, you're a good listener, and you're a good communicator. Number 6 is that you need to be able to listen more than you talk. We have this myth in the real estate business that a presentation means I talk, you listen. And if I'm meeting with a seller, what it means is I'm going to talk 80% of the time, and they're going to talk 20% of the time, maybe, if I let them. And that's the worst presentation ever. What I'm really looking for is, if you measured it from the beginning of the night to the end of the night, I'm looking for a 50-50. Now, there's going to be times when I'm going to talk a little more, and there's going to be a whole lot of times when they're going to talk a lot more, when we're catching up if they're sphere members, or I'm getting to know them if I don't already know them, when I'm trying to find out what they want and what they need. They're going to do most of the talking. When we actually get to my presentation, it's probably going to be, if I'm having a good day, I'm probably only going to talk about 60% of the time during my actual presentation. And so what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to just be a better listener. Now, there's a tricky component to this for real estate agents, and especially inexperienced agents. What happens with inexperienced agents is they drop into a pattern of listening that isn't the most productive. There's 3 kinds of listening. The first kind is called not. I'm not listening. Most of the time we're not listening because somebody's boring. You might not be listening right now, I don't know. Sometimes we're not listening because we're distracted. There are a lot of reasons we're not listening, but that's probably the worst kind of listening. The second kind of listening is called response-based, and this is what the inexperienced agent often does on a listing appointment. They're listening, sort of, but they're listening with the intent to figure out what they're going to say next. So yeah, I'm hearing you, but I'm mostly focused on how am I going to respond to what you say? How am I going to, what am I going to say next? So that's response-based listening. The best kind is called active listening. And active listening is listening with the intent to understand. And it's other based. It's I'm listening because I want to understand you. And then seventh part of this, I think firmly established in all the people skills and the listing skills, I think great listing agents see themselves as leaders. So whenever I talk about leadership with agents, they wonder, well, who do I lead? I think you lead your business. You are the leader of your business. We're independent contractors. Nobody sets a bunch of pieces of paper on our desk and says, here's all your work. I want the Johnson file on my desk at 4. Nobody does that. You're not employees. You have your own business. And so you're the leader of your business. You're also the leader, at least the real estate leader, of your sphere of influence. You are the leader, I believe, of your fellow realtors, because when you create listing abundance, you start to interact with more realtors because you're taking more listings, you're more successful, and people start to look up to you. I think that most of you are probably leaders in your community. And then last but not least, I believe you're leaders in your family. I mean, if you can be a leader anywhere, I would love for that place, one of those places, to be in your family. There are a lot of different ways to lead people. And some people think that the most effective way to lead is to lead by pushing. These are the dictatorial leaders. Go do this. A lead by pushing person says, follow me. Let's go. I'll show you the way. I think the better way to lead is by example. And when you're leading by example, you don't have to say anything. That's when people are saying, hey, we'll follow you. You seem to know where we're going, so we'll follow you. I think when you become that kind of a leader, you become more effective. I think a great leader empowers people at the kitchen table, during a listing appointment, during the middle of a transaction, in their marketing, and all over the place, and especially in places like negotiation and counseling and stuff like that. Benjamin Zander was the conductor of the Boston Symphony Orchestra for decades. And he said this once. He said, I always thought I was a really good conductor, but the day I became great, the day I became a great conductor was the day that I understood that the conductor of an orchestra doesn't make a sound. He depends for his power on his ability to make others powerful. And I think I think we're very much like the conductors of an orchestra. I mean, who is it who's orchestrating all these things that happen in a real estate transaction? Oh yeah, us, the Benjamin Zanders of real estate. I really also think that at some point the aliens are coming down, and one of two things is going to happen when they get here. And maybe they've already been here. I know there are plenty of people who believe that. But I believe one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to land and they're going to look around and they're going to go, nah, next planet, and they're just going to leave, or they're going to get out. And they're going to get out and they're going to start walking around. And I'm hoping that one of them will walk up to one of you and say that thing that aliens say, which is, take me to your leader. And when they do that, I want you to go, that would be me. What do you need? What do I need to show you? How can I show you around? So the eighth part of the listing mindset is marketing. Your ability to target potential sellers in your marketing by displaying the strengths that you have that might attract someone to your listing business. So I market with one simple purpose, and that is to attract sellers. I'm trying to attract sellers. You know what? If I get buyers too, that's fine. I can live with that. I'll pick up a buyer. I'm not against that, but my marketing is tied to me attracting sellers to my business. So how do I do that? I think in order to create the listing mindset, an agent has to be able to translate their mindset into focusing on sellers. So if I said to you, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say open houses, you're going to say all kinds of things like buyers or yuck or hate them or waste of time or whatever. When I think of open houses, I think of sellers. A long time ago, I heard this statistic, and I heard it reinforced about 4 years ago, and that is this. When a sign goes up in a yard, another one goes up within a quarter of a mile within 9 days. So when I have an open house, I'm looking for that next seller. Some people don't like neighbors at their open houses. I want all the neighbors at my open houses. I see that as an opportunity to get that next seller. Work in the neighborhood around a listing. What's the first thing that pops into your mind? Well, people think, and some sellers think that you're looking for buyers. You know, I'm looking for a buyer in the neighborhood. No, I'm looking for the next listing. I'm looking for the seller. And then there's another great opportunity for you to change that mindset and cultivate it towards a listing mindset. And that's when you get asked that question we get asked, which is, how's the market? When I get asked how the market is, I assume in my head that the person asking the question is a seller. So I talk to them like they're a seller. We talk about supply. We talk about average days on market. We talk about stuff like that. By the way, this is a whole side note, but stop answering the question, how's the market, with, oh, it's good, it's great, it's awesome, it's whatever. And take 20 seconds to actually explain the market to someone. In 20 seconds, you could give me two stats. You could give me the average sales price. You can tell me what it was a year ago. Then you could maybe talk to me about days on market, tell me what that was a year ago, and then tell me what it all means to me. In 20 seconds, you could do all of that, and you would make a much bigger impression on me than you just saying the market's good or it's great or it's awesome. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and if I'm a buyer, the market is nothing close to good, great, or awesome, and hasn't been for 7 years. So how do you anchor this? How do you anchor this mindset? I think you do it with a phenomenon called ESP. Now, this is not extrasensory perception. This is exposure, spoken, perform. So I've now exposed you to this idea of the listing mindset and having a mindset that's going to attract sellers to you. You've now been exposed to it. Now I think you need to talk the talk. You need to talk like you're creating listing abundance. You need to talk like you have a listing mindset. You need to tell people close to you that you set goals with, that that's what your goal is going to be. You need to speak it. And then you need to do it. You need to perform it. It's one thing to talk the talk. It's another thing to walk the walk. What I think ought to happen when you finally have this down is that we would walk in to your room one night and we'd see you huddled under the covers with little tears in your eyes, and you'd look up at us and you'd say, I see sellers. And that would be your listing mindset rolling out. So number 2 of our 5 things, let's talk about controlling the process. So I want you to get your fingers ready for the Q&A box. So I want you to get your fingers ready for the Q&A box and just type in the answer to my next few questions. Question number 1. Who decides what realtor a seller is going to choose? You or them? Who decides it? Just tell me in the chat box. Who makes that decision, you or them? I'm loving some of your optimism. I'm loving other people's reality. But in fact, from what I can see so far right now, Jennifer, if I had my bell, I'd ring it, ding, 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 ding. They do. I mean, let's be really practical here. Yeah, do I have influence? Yeah, do I have all this other stuff? Can I coerce them? Can I sell them? Well, no, in fact, you can't if they have no interest in you. It's their house. It's their money. They will actually decide in the end what realtor they want to choose. So question number 2, who decides the list price of a property? You or them? Tell me in the chat box. All right, now we're getting on board. They decide, right? It's their house, it's their money. They get to decide. So owners, them, they do, yes. Who decides how much they're going to pay a real estate agent? You or them? Come on, you can type. All right, maybe some of you can't type. It's okay. Here's the bottom line. Their house, their money. If you charge them more than what they want to pay, they'll find somebody else. Now, we don't get to decide either of those three major decisions. So tell me in the chat box what decision we actually get to make. What decision do we get to make? Okay, Jennifer's given us how we present our value, whether or not we want to work with the seller. From the anonymous attendee, there's the one, whether or not we want to work with them, whether they choose us or not. By the way, there are times probably when I decided I didn't want to work with someone, and I had no idea whether they were going to choose me, because at that point, I probably didn't care anymore. So we get to decide whether or not we want to take the listing. But do we have any control in either of the other three decisions? And what I believe is yes. So here's what I want you all to do. Get your fingers out, get ready again. Stay with me here. Engage. I want you to type the following words into the chat box. I control the process. I control the process. And if you're not in a place where you can type that into the chat box, then say it out loud in whatever room you're in the house, or if you're in your car. I want you to just express that I control the process, because that's what you do. You control the process. They may make these decisions, but you control the process. What does that look like? Let me give you the simplest example I can give you. When you do a market analysis for a potential seller, who pulls up the properties, you or them? Well, obviously you do. Why do you get to do it? Well, you're the realtor. You have the expertise. You're the market expert, right? Well, that's you controlling the process, because I'm not using bad comps. I'm not using comps that don't fit. I'm not using the house next door just because it's next door if it's 1,000 square feet bigger. I am controlling the process. I control the process so that they will make better decisions. It's the whole reason I control the process. Here's the second thing you need to know. Behavior is predictable. Behavior is predictable. So wherever you are right now, grab a little side piece of paper. I want to illustrate both of these things to you. I want you to jot down a number between 1 and 10. Jot down a number between 1 and 10. Now take that number that you just jotted down and multiply it by 9. Multiply that number by 9. Now, if you have a 1-digit number, leave it alone. If you have a 2-digit number, add the 2 digits together. So if it's 23, you add 2 plus 3. If it's 76, 7 plus 6, you get it. If you have a 3-digit number, by the way, put your pen down. You already suck at math and you don't get to play anymore. All right, so you now have another number. Subtract 5 from your new number. Subtract 5 from your new number. And now you have another new number. So take that new number and write down the corresponding letter of the English alphabet. So A equals 1, B equals 2, Z equals 26. And again, if you have a letter higher than, or a number higher than 26, put your pen down, you're done. So now you have a letter. Write down the name of a country that begins with that letter. A country, not a city, a country that begins with that letter. Now take the last letter in your country and write down the name of an animal that begins with that letter. And then get your fingers ready to type in the chat box how dazzled you are when I tell you, I don't think there are any kangaroos or koala bears in Denmark. I'm not getting anybody who's dazzled at this point. You just write the word dazzled. You can give me a thumbs up. You could do anything. Elephant. Socorro, I'm worried about how you came up with elephant. Here's the deal. I did something, thank you, April, for being dazzled. I did something very simple. I controlled the process. You picked a number between 1 and 10. If you multiply it by 9, here's what you get. 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81, or 90. And if you add any of those together, you get 9. Controlled the process. You subtract 5 from 9, you get 4. Now all of a sudden 4 equals D. There's always somebody, but tell me in the chat box if this is you who put down Dominican Republic. There's always one person. There's also usually a person who thinks Dubai is a country. So we went with Denmark. Behavior is predictable. So K, kangaroo, koala bear. I had a guy once in the class say, I said kittens. And he was about 6'6" and weighed about 250. And I just said, I love kittens. Kittens are great. I control the process. And what I know is most of the time, their behavior is predictable. I'm trying to create pre-appointment perceptions. I want them to think of me a certain way. If I had my way, this is what sellers would always be saying to each other. He's like totally the best agent. So I try to pre-position that. Now I'm pre-positioning several different things. First, I'm pre-positioning getting the call in the first place. By the way, if your phone rang and somebody said, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house, guess what? You did something to make that phone ring. You pre-positioned yourself in some way that made the phone ring. Now, maybe you've known these people forever. Maybe they just happened to get your first marketing piece and loved your high school graduation picture on it. Who knows? But you did something to get the call. And then I pre-position for the appointment. I make sure that the things are going to happen at the appointment that I want to happen. So marketing is pre-positioning. It's how we get the phone to ring. When an agent focuses their marketing on listings and particularly targets it towards sellers, they increase their odds of creating that situation where someone is going to call them when they need to sell. And so I look at marketing as pre-positioning. And in good marketing, I need to understand before I can even do it, who am I? Who am I trying to reach? What do they need? And do I have that thing that they need? Can I give it to them? And then I try to focus on my strengths to attract them to my business. I could make marketing so simple. I mean, I know there are 1 day and 6 day and all kinds of day classes on marketing. Let me make marketing as simple as I possibly can. Show people what you're great at, market your strengths, and that will attract them to your business. No one's attracted to your weaknesses. Some of you are old enough to remember the dating game, right? So the dating game, there's 3 bachelors on one side and a bachelorette who's going to pick the one. Well, here's what never happened in the history of the dating game. Bachelorette said, bachelor number 2, do you like long walks in the sunset and blah, blah, blah. They ask all these puff questions, but finally she says, bachelor number 3, why would I pick you? Here's what bachelor number 3 has never said in the history of the dating game. Pick me? Can't even imagine you pick me. I'm like the biggest loser that's ever been in this game. And by the way, I know you can't because of the barrier here, but you should see these other 2 guys. Compared to me, they're like Adonises. I mean, they're just amazing. Pick me? I can't even imagine that you pick me. You should see my car, how dirty it is. It's almost as dirty as my house. In fact, what is today? Thursday. Well, I'll be taking my weekly shower tomorrow, and that would be kind of a cool thing. That's never happened. What does Bachelor 3 actually do? He puts his best case out there. He puts his best foot forward. He tries to win over the bachelorette by focusing on the things he's great at. That's what marketing is. Marketing is you getting the word out about what you're great at to attract people to your business. Once the phone rings, now I have another opportunity to pre-position the appointment, and that is our initial contact. Here's what doesn't seem to change much, even though technology has changed a lot. Buyers get a hold of you all kinds of ways. Sellers generally still call. They still pick up the phone and give you a call. So when this phone rings, this is my first opportunity to start pre-positioning for the appointment in a live sort of way. It's why I don't like online seller questionnaires. I mean, if you're thinking about selling and you want a free market analysis or whatever, yeah, fill in some gaps on my little form and send it to me. But if you're really wanting me to list your home, we need to talk. I need to be able to prepare for our appointment. So it helps here if you understand people. And this comes from your EQ or your emotional intelligence. So I'm going to give you a quick run through of, I think, one of the greatest ways to understand people that exists, that's existed for decades, and that's the DISC profile. When we look at the DISC profile, here's what it really does. If we understand somebody else's personality style, we can do a better job of serving them. We can do a better job of making them comfortable. We can do a better job of taking care of them. We can do a better job of doing what we do for a living, which is providing a service to our people. So DISC, 4 basic groups of people, and we'll drop them into nice little quadrants. Ds, directors, also called dominants and doers and some other things. Is, influencers. S, supporters. Cs, contemplators, also called controllers, critical analysts. Now, basically, look at the horizontal axis, horizontal. The 2 groups above, Ds and Is, are more outgoing. Okay, the groups below, S's and C's, more reserved. Now look at the vertical axis. The people to the right, I's and S's, more people are process oriented. And let me tell you what that also means. They don't like making decisions. The people to the left, D's and C's, are more task or result oriented, which means they do like making decisions. Now they make them differently, but they do like making decisions. So D's, positive characteristic points of B's. They are firm, direct, competitive, result-driven, demanding, and assertive. Positive personality points of I's. They're sociable. I like to call them chit-chatty people. They're persuasive, they're spontaneous, they're approachable, they're charismatic, they're energetic. By the way, with a D, if I could characterize D's in one phrase, it would be cut to the chase. So if I'm really on the phone with somebody who comes off as a high D, when I open up my Outlook and put their appointment in, and that appointment shows up in its default setting, which is about an hour, I'm going to go, yeah, and I'm going to drop it to about a half an hour because they're ready to kick my butt out in 15 minutes. If I can't do it quickly, I'm never going to get the gig with them. So I'm cutting it down. Whereas if someone's chatting my ear off on the phone, there's no way that's going to change in person. So that hour all of a sudden becomes an hour and a half or 2. S's. S's are warm, accepting, persistent, steady, patient, and reliable. There's a downside of S's, and before we even get to that slide, because we're talking about time slots, they need a lot of reassuring. They're not inwardly motivated. They're motivated externally. They're expecting that you're going to get them excited about this. And so it's going to take some time. And sometimes it's going to feel like you're pulling teeth with S's. So I take that 1 hour and I might make it 2. Why do you even care about that? Here's why. Once you've started creating listing abundance, you'll have multiple listing appointments on a given evening. And so if I know I'm working with a D at 6 o'clock, by golly, I can schedule somebody else in at 7. Whereas if I'm working with an I at 7, I'm done for the night probably. And then C's, let's make C's easy to understand. Accountants and engineers, accurate, detailed, compliant, analytical, systematic, thorough. Negative personality outlooks. D's, other people see D's as impatient, controlling, aggressive, abrasive, and insensitive. Other people see I's as being too talkative, impulsive, overly animated, too carefree, unstructured. They see S's as being pushovers and indecisive and unassertive and too emotional and overly thorough. And they see C's as being rigid, distant, perfectionist, interrogative, and unemotional. So we blend these together to get a feel for who it is we're dealing with, both the positives and the negatives. And so the manifestation of all of this is, if I'm working with a D, I work confidently, quickly. I hit the high points and I show them what's going to work. They love guarantees. They just want to believe in you. They just want to feel like you know your stuff and you can get the job done. And so I have a limited amount of time to put my best foot forward with a D. With an I need to be prepared to talk about properties. When I do my market analysis, they're going to know every house on there and probably the people who live in them. I expect that they know about the neighbor's house. I don't know if they've been in it, but they know about it. They're going to have questions. Here's the tough thing with I. And I is going to say something to you like, well, let me ask you a question. And then 5 minutes later, you're going to be still thinking, are you getting to the question right now or not? It's going to take some time. S's, you need to be methodical. You need to be prepared to answer a different kind of question, a question where you're going to need to reassure them that they're doing the right thing. They're making a feeling decision. And so you're going to have to make them feel good about it. And with C's, you know what? I just think you need to have everything down. You need to be massively organized. The more stuff you have and the better organized you are, the more thorough you are, the more accurate you are, the better off you are. By the way, with a C, if it is my accountant that I'm talking to on the phone, I still have an hour with them. I'm not going to expand it or shorten it. I just know I better have my act together in that hour. It better seem like clockwork, however I'm doing it. Now, if we only dealt with individuals, this would be easy. But what about couples? Couples. Well, I have a master's degree in counseling. And one of the things they teach us in counseling school is that when you're dealing with a couple, no matter the makeup of that couple, they may have different personality styles. So if one is a D and one is an I treat the D like a D, I treat the I like an I. If it's an S and an I, same thing, I treat the S like an S. Now, you will have problems with more than any other group if one is a D and one is an S. Theoretically, they say the biggest problems with the disc are D's and S's and I's and C's. They don't do well together, but D's and S's are a bigger problem usually. The D generally will cut off the S. They finish their sentences for them. They try to hurry them up. That should have no effect on you. I'm still taking care of that S and still treating them like an S. You should know what you are. In order to know what you are, there is a great free disc profile at 123test.com/disc-personality-test. I like this one. There are hundreds of free discs. The problem with most of them is you can take it for free, but if you want results, they want to charge you 20 bucks or 40 bucks or whatever. And by the way, these guys still have a paid version, but what they give you for free is more robust than a lot of the other sites. So here's part of my last disc, and that was that I am 41% I, so I'm a little chit-chatty. I would say that's the nature of teaching, to be chit-chatty. I'm 31% D. These are the two most common salesperson personality types, D's and I's. The person who wants to get the results, wants to get it done, but at the same time is able to socialize. I'm 5% C, which would explain why the inside of my car is dirty or the top of my desk might be dirty, because that's not as important to me as other things. I'm 23% S, which is rare for a salesperson or a teacher. I either think it's the counselor in me coming out when I take the test, or it's just natural and it's why I became a counselor. There's also a really, really massively cool site to research some more disc things. And it's called Crystal Knows, K-N-O-W-S. So type in Crystal Knows into Google, and then maybe just type the word disc after it. You will see breakdowns on all the personality types. It will tell you how you would email a D, how you would negotiate with a D, how you would market a D, how you would interview a D. I've never seen more information anywhere that's practical than this website to get you to better understand people. Once we have people on the phone, I think our goals are pretty simple. I'm trying to create comfort and build rapport, make a relationship that's going to work. I'm showing them the expectation of professionalism because I have a list of questions. I'm trying to ascertain, different facts and learn things. I'm beginning to control the process. And of course, I have to gather information because at some point, I got to pull up properties from market analysis. The question you ask and the questions you ask are are the thing that's going to pre-position your appointment. So I want to get the kind of information that I'm going to need so that I can properly prepare for the appointment. And some of the biggies are, I need to know why they're moving. I need to know when it's going to happen. And I need to especially know what their expectations are. So those would be three biggies that are going to help me pre-position my appointment. I'm also going to send them a pre-listing packet. So tell me in the chat box, just say yes if you're someone who does a pre-listing packet. Pre-listing packet. Not yet, Alfred. Well, we can change that, my man. Rory says yes. April says yes. Generally in a class, it's somewhere between 10 and 20%. What the pre-listing packet does is it sets the stage for your arrival. It pre-positions you. When people are making big decisions in their lives, they want to ponder them. So when you send someone a pre-listing packet, you prepare them for the appointment, you show how you are going to add value, and you differentiate yourself from all the people who don't send one. So what I tell them on the phone is, I'm going to send you, before our meeting on Friday, I'm going to send you a packet of information that might help you understand how I work. If you'll take a look at it, it could save us up to 30 to 45 minutes when we finally meet. That's the carrot, by the way. I'm saving them time if they look at it. They decide whether or not they look at it. By the way, I can drop it off in person. I can drop it off at work. I can email it. I can have it be a downloadable thing. Technology gives us a ton of different ways to get a pre-listing packet in someone's hands. I look at this pre-listing packet from two standpoints. First, if I was a seller, what would I want to know before I met with a realtor to talk about listing my house? What would I want to know? So I put on my seller hat to determine what it is I'd want to know. Next, I look at it from my standpoint. What kind of information do I want them to have prior to meeting with them? So I'm looking at it from their perspective and from mine, trying to send the best packet I can. Now, I will, when this class is over, one of the things that I would love to happen is that I will be shot a roster of all of you. And by the way, if you do not want to be sent a follow-up email, just make sure you let Jane or somebody know that you don't want to be on that list. But when I get the list, I will send you 2 or 3 samples of pre-listing packets. I'll send you a sample of the seller interview form and some other things in the follow-up email, plus give you a little bit of an action plan as to what you might implement next. But I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to know what this thing would look like. Number 3, magnets of strength. I think a key to your success is your ability to deploy hard work against your strengths. I have never in my life, and not now, have I ever wanted to be a jack of all trades. I want to be the master of a few. I also think, why would I bother with things that I'm inherently not good at? Why would I bother with things that I dislike? Why would I bother to do things that do nothing to enhance my business or my life? And why would I want to do things that take away from the things that I should be doing? So grab a piece of paper, draw something that looks like this. One of these columns is good enough. Or just roll along without drawing. The great thing about a virtual class is no one can make fun of your drawing, which is a bonus. But we've got a little box, a bigger box, a little box, a bigger box. So in the top box, I want you to jot down a strength you have. It can be a personality strength that works into the real estate business, or it can be a real estate strength. Jot down something that you are great at. Next, how would this strength help a seller? How would this strength help a seller? Whatever your strength was, how would it help a seller? Next, why would they care? What's in it for them? Why is that strength important to them? And by the way, sometimes the why is a reflection of the how. Sometimes it isn't. And now let's get practical. What can you do to brand or market that strength? What can you do to get that strength out in front of more people? In and of itself, if you know what you can do to brand or market that strength, get it out in front of more people, you've sort of, what am I thinking? Subconsciously or subversively created a plan for yourself. So let's see what this might look like. Let's say one of the things you're good at is market expertise. Well, market expertise helps sellers by helping them price their home, helping them understand the market, helping them be more competitive and be more effective. Why do they care? Well, they're better informed and they're better able to compete. Now, to me, I like tying the why to an emotion because then it means more. So if they're better informed and they're better able to compete, I think the why becomes confidence. Because I have market expertise, my people are more confident. What can I do to brand it? I used to do a newsletter. It was 4 pages long. I did it for years and years and years and years. And every single month, the front page was about the market. I'm teaching you about the market. I'm analyzing the market. I'm interpreting the market. Market, 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 to the point where all of a sudden I've taught you so much about the market, you think I know it. I changed the way I conversed with people. We already talked about that. You could do this in a weekly update, a weekly market update. You could do it on a blog, in a video, in a podcast, in a newsletter, in a postcard, in a social media post. You could do it all kinds of different ways. Number 4, KFC? No, sorry, it's the KCF. So let's see. K, knowledgeable. The agent displays knowledge. Agents with great knowledge of what they have to offer a seller are better equipped to impress potential sellers. Consider your strengths, expertise, and methods that have worked in the past when delivering your great presentation. K. C, customized. Because every seller is different, an agent must be able to customize their plan/presentation to meet the needs of the individual seller. When a potential seller understands that an agent has designed a presentation specifically for them, they're more likely to find that presentation relevant. And an individually relevant presentation goes a long way to being chosen. And F, focused. An agent with their knowledge of their strengths and their ability to customize their plan is able to focus completely on the task at hand. Focus is a key factor in delivering the best possible presentation for each and every seller. I actually believe there are 4 presentations every one of you should have. There is the standard Realtor Talks, seller shuts up and listens presentation, which is the one that a lot of us use, especially when we started out. And it's the one that I won't be able to get some of you to stop using. There is the whoever has the most stuff wins presentation. There's the BFF PPP presentation. And then there's the one buttock presentation. We're going to focus on the one buttock presentation, but I know that I better tell you what BFF and PPP stand for, or it'll just drive you nuts the rest of the day. When I'm when I'm going to work with someone who's a past client, one of my best friends, whomever, my friend Rick, in a 9-year span, sold 7 houses. Well, I got news. I didn't have to really work to get any of the listings. So with Rick, what we could do is we could sit down and we could do price first. Normally, I do price last. I make sure that we get along. I make sure that I like you, that you like me, that you think my marketing plan is going to work. Then we talk about price. Well, with Rick, we just figure out the price. The other people I do that with are PPPs, which are price possessed people. These are the people who just won't leave it alone. It's all they want to talk about, all they want to talk about. So occasionally I'll give in and do that first. Whoever has the most stuff win, by the way, is when you just load on a bunch of stuff. But the one buttock presentation, first, it's knowledgeable. It's knowledgeable and it's for them. So you have to know your stuff. Old school sales would say, feature benefit, feature benefit. You have this thing, here's what's in it for you. You have this thing, here's what's in it for you. While I think old school sales is great, I think we're leaving out a component, and it's right in the middle. It's not feature benefit, it's feature about benefit. So it's not FB, it's FAB, it's fab. It's you creating your fabulous presentation. So let's talk about FAB. FAB, F, the feature. The feature is the thing that you have. I'm going to put a sign in your yard, feature. I'm going to put it in the MLS, feature. I'm going to bury one of those St. Joseph statues upside down, feature. I have an internet distribution strategy, feature. Feature, feature, feature. Features are the tools in your tool belt. If you don't know what you do for a seller, check your company listing presentation if there is one. Check your old presentation. Just think at the top of your head, what do I have to offer a seller? Or if you're really stuck, go to Google and type in critical role of the realtor in the transaction. And the Orlando Association of Realtors has put together over 200 things that a listing agent does in a transaction. By the way, nobody wants to hear your 200 things or even your 52 things. I worked at a company as the education director for 8 years, and we had a 52-point marketing plan. Well, I got news. Nobody wants to hear you do 52 points, not your accountant and not your engineer. In fact, the result of you even trying to do a 52-point listing presentation is probably going to be this. So it's KFC. We're knowledgeable. We're also focused. We're focused on them and finding out what they need and giving it to them and making sure they understand stuff. So one of the things that I will send you in the follow-up email is this FAB chart. But I want to walk you through simply how you might present this stuff to people in a focused way. I am going to put a sign in your yard. That sign is the feature. Okay, cool. But the about, well, sign, feature, easy. But the about is, what does it do? How does it work? Here's where we have a problem, and sometimes we don't even know we have the problem. We think when we go through our listing appointment, or when we go through our presentation with people, that they know what all this stuff is for. They know why negotiating is important. They know why you put a sign in their yard. They know what an internet distribution strategy is. I got news for you. Most of them don't know any of that stuff. In fact, there are still people who believe that MLS stands for Major League Soccer. So we have to teach them stuff. So I tell them what the feature is, and then I tell them how that it works. Again, we assume they know stuff, right? MLS, Major League Soccer. So instead, we explain stuff to them. Einstein said this: if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So I'm going to put a sign in your yard. Here's the about. That sign is the visual representation that the house is for sale. It is customizable because of sign writers. It has my contact information. It has my companies on it. It's target marketed because the only people who see it are already in your neighborhood. And it is the third most utilized source of information for buyers. And it has my high school graduation picture on it. So how could it be any better than that? I don't even think you know that your sign is the third most utilized source of information for buyers, let alone they know it. And I don't think they know the other things. So we need to explain what we're doing for them. Then we need to show them the benefit. And to explain the benefit, I need to introduce you to my Uncle Pat. This is my Uncle Pat. My Uncle Pat was my dad's second oldest uncle, I believe, or second oldest brother. My dad had 5 brothers and 1 sister. My mom was the only girl in 9 children. I had a boatload of uncles. And of all of my uncles, my Uncle Pat was the most successful. Now, he didn't look it here, and I don't know that he dressed much differently than that at work, except he probably put shoes on. But my Uncle Pat had the nicest house. He drove the nicest car. He made the most money. Back in the 50s and in the early 60s, my Uncle Pat made 6 figures when literally no one made 6 figures. And you know what he did for a living? He lived in Detroit, and he would go from manufacturing place to manufacturing place, and he sold tools out of the back of his truck. He sold Snap-on tools. He sold Cunningham. He sold Craftsman. He sold Stanley. He sold them all. And he was great at it. Again, made more money than any of my other uncles and seemed to be fairly happy. His problem was he was a bit of a drunk. And so we would have these family get-togethers, and Uncle Pat would always get a little bit, as my mother would call them, 3 sheets to the wind. Well, one day we're having this party at our house. And so when we had him at our house, my parents had this rule, which was I was a host. So I had to stay with the adults, pay attention, do whatever. My Uncle Pat staggers up to me and he says, Richard, because everyone calls you by your full name when they're drunk. Richard, everybody here thinks I sell tools. They think I sell saws, hammers, drills, drill bits. And he made the word bits go on, seem like a half an hour, drill bits. Richard, I don't sell drill bits. I sell holes. Whoops. Hang on, I just lost. There it is. I sell holes. And then he walked away. I'm 9 years old. My mother walks up to me and she says, man, your Uncle Pat looked really excited there. What was he talking about? And I said, well, he was telling me he sold holes. My mom said, well, your Uncle Pat was drunk. But guess what? The reason my Uncle Pat was so good was he knew, drunk as a skunk, 3 sheets to the wind. My Uncle Pat knew exactly what he did for a living. He didn't sell you a drill. He didn't sell you a drill bit. He sold you the end result benefit, which was the hole you got so that you could put that bolt in there and tie together those 2 pieces of wood on your deck so that it didn't slip, so that no one got hurt, and so that it never got loose. He answered the question, so what? Why would I buy that tool? What's in it for me? Why do I care? There are 6 magic words that need to be added to your presentation. I'm going to put a sign in your yard. It's a visual representation that your house is for sale and blah, 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 blah. And what this means to you is you get whatever the benefit is. And that benefit of the sign might be exposure. It might be a lot of different things, targeted marketing. So the why, targeted exposure. By the way, that can make them feel confident. But I'm telling them, here's what I have for you. Here's what it's about and how it works. And here's what's in it for you. Simon Sinek in his book, Start With Why, said this. People don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. Or they also buy why they want it, what's in it for them. So there's almost like a dialogue trail to this. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you need this. I have this. Here's how it works. Here's what it does. Here's what's in it for you. Isn't it great? Here's what I'm looking for. And I know this sounds like old school sales, but it still works. I'm going to show them that sign. I'm going to say, can you see how that would benefit you in the sale of your home? That's agreement, ideally, right? And they're going to say, yes. And I'm going to show them something else. And they're going to say, yes. And I'm going to show them something else. And they're going to say, yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. And all the little yeses lead to a big yes. By the way, this is the best line ever. Can you see how this would benefit you in the sale of your home? The problem with this line is after you've said it to me twice, I don't want to hear it anymore. It's sounding too salesy to me. So I get agreement different ways. I'll say things like, isn't that cool? Don't you like that? Sometimes they'll do it. man, that's really nifty. Well, that's a cool program. I really like how you guys do that. And I just tie it down. Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? Isn't it great? So you have a need, I have a thing. Here's how it works. Here's what's in it for you. And yeah, isn't it cool? Then the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. Which brings us to the C, customize. For an agent trying to get a listing, you delivering a fantastic presentation is crucial. And every seller has different wants and different needs, which means your one size fits all presentation may not fit me. So a great presentation follows the KCF, but the biggie here is the C, customizing it. So what I started doing a long time ago was what I lovingly call the instant presentation. The instant presentation goes like this. You should have 4 to 8 talking points. Talking points. Here's the definition of a talking point. A talking point is your coolest stuff. It's your best stuff. It's just your best stuff. And when I have talking, I could have, let's say I had 4 presentations, all in the same neighborhood, same style house. So pricing is going to be very similar, right? But what's going to be different is individual seller needs. Well, the talking points, if I have those 4 sellers, they're each going to get my talking points, 4 to 8. They're your best things. You're using them on every seller. So my best stuff. Then I'm going to have 4 to 8 things that while I'm asking them, while we're counseling, while I'm asking them what they need, how soon they need to move, how they see marketing, what's the most sellable things in their house, how they see, this whole thing going, what are their expectations? As we're having those conversations, I'm writing down individual things that are customized just for them. So 4 to 8 talking points, your best stuff, 4 to 8 things customized just for them. Since I started doing this, I've never used more than 12 slides or 12 pages in a presentation ever. And I can get through a D personality type quickly. I can spend more time with somebody else, but I'm rarely pulling out more than 10 to 12 to 14 of my tools. Makes life pretty simple. And you're customizing. So your new presentation works like this. At the bottom of all of it is you. How do you feel about you? Are you self-aware? How is your self-esteem? I think we can agree on this. If I'm ready to go on a listing appointment thinking that I'm the worst realtor who's ever lived and that I suck green eggs, I may not do as good a job than if I'm feeling good about myself. I think if we have good self-esteem, we're probably on a path to a better presentation. Then I have to know my stuff, what I have to offer a seller, and I have to be prepared for that specific appointment. Here's what's cool. The better prepared I am, the more knowledge I have, the better I feel about me. The better I feel about me, the more knowledgeable I want to be. This is like a snowball rolling downhill. It's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what that allows me to do when I've got these 2 things rolling well, I'm feeling good about me, I'm feeling good about the appointment, I'm totally knowledgeable, and I'm very prepped, is I am able to be in the moment with them. I'm able to sit at the kitchen table and be right there, right then, loving every minute of it. That's what the moment is. The moment's right here, right now, loving every minute of it. And when I'm in the moment, I'm totally focused. I don't even have to try to be. I just am because I'm there in the moment. Occasionally when I'm in the moment, my passion ekes out. And I've had plenty of sellers say to me, man, you're really into this. That's the kind of real estate agent I want. I want someone who's excited about what they're doing. Then you get into flow and your presentation just happens. And that's the one buttock presentation. It's how it's going to work for you. It's how it's going to, it's how it's going to help you create listing abundance. So I am open to questions about anything. I do see the question, to me, what is the hardest part of the listing presentation? I think it's being able to understand what you have to offer the seller and be able to express that in a way that works for them. That's the hardest part. And a lot of that takes listening because I have to decide what they want. Fats Waller, jazz musician from the 30s, Has a great line in the musical Ain't Misbehavin'. And in it, the line is find out what they like and how they like it and let them have it just that way. That's great advice. Find out what they like, how they like it, let them have it just that way. My top 8 talking points. Let's see, let me roll out about 4 or 5. My internet distribution strategy. When we take your listing, where does it go on the internet? My ability and skills as a negotiator. My customer service and accessibility. My experience in the industry and relationship with other agents. The sign we put in your yard. How to best work with the remote seller. These questions keep popping up just as I'm ready to pack up, right? Right here, Zoom. I think Zoom is the best. You're able to actually see them, interact with them, as well as present. And so, yeah, I've done a few Zoom appointments. We're starting to get a little more in. We're starting to open up a little bit. And so that's helped. But yeah, Zoom is a great resource for that.
Need more help? Contact SDAR Member Services at 858-715-8040 or membership@sdar.com.